It's been 3 months since I used social media. Well, apart from a bit of YouTube, as a result of that, I've been reading a lot more than usual. And today, I'm here to make a case. Not against screens, which I might actually do in some other video, but this case is for reading books. Everyone says you should know your why for doing whatever you're doing. So my goal for today is to help you get to your why for reading books so that you can go pick up a book right after you finish watching this video. So let's first get into the science of why you should read books. Well, because it reduces stress. And I'm not saying that from a personal experience, even though that is a personal experience. However, there's science behind it. There was this research done at the University of Sussex. The researchers increased the stress levels of some volunteers and then exposed them to traditional relaxation methods. Reading won by 68% compared to other relaxation methods, including listening to music, going out for a walk, and even playing video games. And the best part? People only had to read for 6 minutes to slow down their heart rate and ease the tension in their muscles. Dr. David Lewis, who did the test, said that losing yourself in a book is the ultimate relaxation. And as you know, lower stress levels are directly tied to longevity. But even apart from that, there are studies that show that reading increases mortality by a whopping 20%. And guess what? This study was done among the elderly for over a 12-year time period. I absolutely love this study. It showed that at 80% survival rate, book readers lived 23 months longer than non-readers. I don't care about the extra 2 years at the end of my life, but gosh, the amount of books I will be able to read when I probably have nothing else to do in the world is the thought alone that excites me. And it's reminding me of what George R. R. Martin wrote. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. A man who never reads lives only one. And that is so correct. Right now, I'm not just present here, but I'm also in 1950s Harlem, New York. What a time and a setting. I was obsessed with Malcolm X just about a month ago when I was reading his autobiography. And this month I just randomly picked up James Baldwin and it's the same setting. And I just got to know that they actually knew each other. So yeah, we readers are time travelers and we do live many, many lives. Okay, let's come back to being young and in the present timeline. Another research that I looked into showed how reading expands our vocabulary. This specific study was conducted on about 500 students and it showed that reading improves vocabulary more than speaking a language or listening to it. And the results were better among younger students of about 4th grade who had weaker vocabulary. So what does that tell us? Read more and start early. And by early, I mean right now. When I was going through this study, I remembered how growing up, my classmates often asked me if I was understanding everything I was reading in the book. And I said no. And to this day, I encounter so many words that I do not know of when I read. I think not being able to understand a word is not a reason not to read, but only to read more. And let me in you on a secret. It doesn't really matter if you don't understand a word or a phrase, as far as you are understanding the idea of a paragraph or even a chapter. In fact, this is what helps you expand your vocabulary. When you understand the idea as a whole, you start associating meaning to the words that you didn't understand in the first place. And more often than not, those meanings are correct. And this is how, one word at a time, you build and expand your vocabulary. So vocabulary is just one way reading sharpens your mind, but reading also trains another mental muscle, that is your memory. I read this study by the Fisher Center for Alzheimer's Research Foundation. For this study, the researchers worked with 300 100 elderly people over the years to see what helps their memory in the long term by engaging them with multiple brain exercises. They concluded that keeping yourself mentally challenged is a great way to preserve brain health overall and especially keep the memory loss away. Book reading, as the researchers said, was a great way to keep yourself mentally challenged on an everyday basis. My father these days have been complaining a lot about his memory. He says that he can't remember the small day-to-day things, especially the conversations he has with people. So I suggested him, of course, to go to the doctor and also to start reading and use social media a bit less because he has been consuming a lot of news through YouTube. And with YouTube Shorts, you know how easy it can rot your brain. So I think he could be losing a bit of focus there and zoning out. But let's hope everything is fine. But reading is definitely gonna help him retain his memory. And I am pretty sure that it is definitely gonna help him regain his focus. Because yes, reading also improves focus. Actually, I read 2 studies on this. One study found that reading consistently develops better attention span. The second study, which I absolutely loved, found that attentive reading of long literary texts improves cognitive patience. It also showed that skimming through literary text negatively affected the attention spans. So don't skim through whatever you read. And yeah, the more and better you read, the better and more patient your focus gets. I call it a win-win. Focus is great. You cannot read without it. However, you need analytical skills to interpret the text, truly enjoy and grow from it. And guess what? There is a study that shows that reading improves analytical skills in both fiction and non-fiction readers. This study was done by Dr. Helena Hollis at University College London. The participants who read fiction for the study improved their analytical skills through their characters and their stories. The participants who read non-fiction valued directness, clear authorship, and explicit questioning. This research concluded that reading transports you into a different world, and that is inherently evaluative, which improves your analytical skills. In fact, there is this other study in which scientists did brain scans on people after they were given a novel to read. The participants were to read a huge chunk of a novel in the evenings for 9 days, and they came in for the scans every morning for 9 days and then once after 5 days of their last reading session. The results showed heightened connectivity in the left temporal cortex, an area of the brain associated with receptivity for a language, and also central sulcus of the brain, which is the primary sensory motor region. Even though participants were not reading while they were in the scanner, they retained their heightened connectivity from their reading session in the last evening. And this happened consistently over the 9 days and then even 5 days later after their last reading session. I think that's pretty cool. So let me give you an example. So when you think about an action, for example running, you can activate the neurons associated with the physical act of running. So you can have those feelings that you often have when you're running. Or imagine thinking about your favorite dish. It can make you drool and leave a taste of goodness in your mouth. So researchers actually saw the same kind of response to reading. The neural changes that they found associated with the physical sensation and movement system suggest that reading a novel can transport you into the body of a protagonist or transport you into the setting of the novel. You know what the neuroscientist Gregory Burns, who did the research, said? We already knew that good stories can put you in someone else's shoes in a figurative sense. Now we are seeing that something may also be happening biologically. It remains an open question how long these neural changes might last, but the fact that we are detecting them over a few days for a randomly assigned novel suggests that your favorite novels could certainly have a bigger and longer lasting effect on the biology of your brain. If that is not cool enough, there are actually more studies to prove that readers, especially the ones who read fiction, develop more empathy for the world around them. And we all know how much we need that right now. Considering all that is going on with the world right now, I am thinking if that's because we're reading less. Actually, it reminds me of what Charles Munger said. I actually very recently read this quote. In my life, I have known no wise people who didn't read all the time. None. Zero. Anyways, I will link all of the studies that I've mentioned below in the description box if you want to check them out. The research on why we should read is powerful. I mean, reading reduces stress, gives us more life, teaches us a language, improves our memory and focus, sparks creativity in us, and most important of all, makes us more empathetic. So yeah, I guess Stephen King is right. Books are uniquely portable magic. But for me, reading is so much more than science. So let me tell you why I read. I am so grateful I was born in a time before phones and internet were common in the homes. So I was pretty much left with books and dolls. So yeah, I have been reading pretty much as long as I can remember. I think earlier on I read mostly out of curiosity. My own life was so little. It was absolutely exhilarating to know about the worlds and people outside of my own life. I think I mentioned it before that I was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X a few weeks back. And I related to him a lot when he said, "My alma mater was books, a good library. I could spend the rest of my life reading, just satisfying my curiosity." And I can say that I have learned a lot more from books than I have ever learned from school. I don't know if it's sad or what, but it is what it is. I'm just glad I had a resource to learn, grow, and entertain myself. Anyway, as I was growing up around my mid-teens, books sort of became my escape. I only recently tended to my mental health, but I had really ugly mental health issues which were just beginning to fester in my mid-teens. So without even realizing, I started using books to escape my own mind, and I think it worked pretty well for me back then. Somerset Maugham says it well. To acquire the habit of reading is to construct yourself a refuge from almost all the miseries of life. But hey, disclaimer alert! Book reading is therapeutic, but it is not therapy. I did end up getting the professional support I so needed in my early 20s. And I'm actually still on therapy and meds. Right now, I do not read for escape, though books are escape. Books, they're a great escape. But anyways, right now I just read for the pure pleasure that I derive from reading. Reading has become a part of my identity. For example, if I meet someone new and they ask me about me, the first thing that pops up into my head is that I read a lot. And that's probably because I have done that consistently for so long. And actually, I fall in love with it a little bit more with every book I read. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "I cannot remember the books any more than the meals I've eaten. Even so, they have made me." Yeah, so I am pretty much what I read. Reading is not a hobby for me, it is who I am. But yeah, let me go on a little tangent and say you absolutely need to remember as much as you can of what you read. I am guilty of not creating a system to do so earlier on. However, I did start keeping a log of everything I read on my Notion. I actually did that more strictly from this year and pen down some of the views of the books as I go because I would absolutely love to have that documented. I have no idea why I didn't start sooner, though I have known about documenting what you read for a while now, and I'm actually quite a documenter of my life. But yeah, never documented my books. Anyways, better late than never, right? Also, one last thing I'd like to mention that I absolutely love about reading is the access I get to the author. Yes, I love being able to know the characters and their lives and their stories, but the fact that as soon As I open a book, I am accessing an author's time, their deepest thoughts and imagination. In fact, a huge chunk of themselves. It just blows up my mind. I can imagine, for example, Betty Smith just sitting and typing away on her typewriter and creating Francie Nolan, which is one of her character. I think I'm remembering the name right. I didn't look it up before I started filming, so yeah. But yeah, the idea of imagining her just typing away and creating that story of Francie, which seems like an extension of her own life, it's just something. So yeah, so many reasons to read a book. In fact, I'm thinking after lunch I should just lie down and pick up the novel that I'm reading of James Baldwin because I'm craving reading right now. As for you who are listening right now, I don't care what kind of a book or genre you would like to read. I just want you to pick up a book. Any book. I have given you more than enough reasons to pick one. So now it's on you. If you would like to read fiction like I prefer, check out this video here where I share 3 books perfect for beginners or anyone who's getting back to reading after a break. Happy reading! Bye!